Hello, church. Pastor Steve here. Welcome to worship. I'm glad you have gathered with us today. Today is the first Sunday in a season that we in the church call Lent. It is the 40 days between Ash Wednesday and Easter. It's the time of preparation when we prepare ourselves for the celebration, the grand celebration of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ on Holy Weekend with Good Friday and Easter. It's a great time to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and to be gathered in worship. That's why I am so excited that you're here today. Today, we do launch into this season of Lent with a time of confession and the things that we do that mark this season. But today is a special day in this church because we are bridging the gap between our Witness series and our Lenten series, Give It Up. We're doing that today because we have a guest that's coming to share with us from Compassion International to talk to us about the important ministry and the ways that we might get involved in changing the world. For those of you who have gathered online, I want to let you know to stay tuned during this service because there is an opportunity that you're going to have for you to be able to participate and to adopt one of the Compassion International children. So especially for you online, there's an opportunity that's coming your way. We also want to let you know that for you online, there's a way in which you can pick up our Lenten guides, our Lenten focus guides that are a part of our season way of celebrating and marking the time. You can go to our webpage, and on our website, you will find links to download and print out all those materials so that you can make sure that you're always available to be a part of things. Now, I want to say as we begin this season of Lent that I am so thankful for our technology and our team that makes it possible for us to give these services to you online. They're here today helping me make this video to welcome you. It's a great day for us to be able to be the church together no matter where we are. So all of our opportunities for Lent, all of the worship times we'll have will be available for you to stream. So mark your calendars now, download that stuff and mark your calendars now so you can make sure you're a part of things. We're getting ready to start worship, and we're getting ready to be excited about all the things that God is doing in the world around us and all the opportunities we have to be the church together.
Lord,
let's worship, church.
40 days, 269.
The peace of Christ be with you. Greet one another with this peace this morning as we're gathered together. As we gather in worship today, we do so on the first Sunday of the season of Lent. During the season of Lent, it is the tradition of the church to add into in worship a time of confession. As we do that today, I invite you to hear this call to confession, hear the prayer of confession, and the words of forgiveness. We cannot earn God's grace or favor. It comes to us not as something owed, but as a gift freely given. Confident in God's love for us, even when we are ungodly, we confess our sins in faith. Let us pray. Gracious God, we gather before you in need of forgiveness and grace. You call us to trust in you completely, but we do not. We are timid and fearful as we follow your lead. We justify our own actions and words, though we know they are not what you require. We struggle to understand the new life of Christ, trusting that you have included us by grace in the family of faith. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Friends, God is for us and not against us. For that very reason, God sent his Son into the world not to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. Believe the good news. In Jesus Christ, we are forgiven. Thanks be to God. Well, good morning, church. It is good to see you all today, and welcome to worship. We are glad that you are a part of our gathering today. And we hope that you'll take time to check out the top 5 to know in your bulletin for some of the great things that are happening around Lebanon First during this season of Lent. I also want to encourage you to pick up one of our Lenten-focused resources on the welcome desk or print them out from a download on our website. That way you can make yourself available for all the opportunities we have to celebrate a holy Lent. This Wednesday, we are going to gather in Hessen Hall at 5 p.m. for our meal. It is a sandwich dinner. We hope that you'll sign up for that online or on the bulletin board so that we can make sure we have enough food. Our activity for the evening is an all-ages trivia night at 6 p.m. in Hessen Hall. We're going to find out just how smart you really are. Lots of great questions for people of all ages, so we hope that you'll make plans to be a part of that. Come and join us for an all-ages trivia night, 6 p.m. in Hessen Hall. These and other things are going on, and we hope you'll keep yourself up to date on all the activities for this season of Lent. At this time, we would invite our children to come forward for the children's moment.
No, I'll take over. It's all good. I've got you. Yes, I have you, John. Because you know what? Sometimes we all make mistakes. And we're not prepared. And because we love Mr. John, we're going to help him, right? Yeah. And we're going to try to understand that sometimes we make mistakes. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's a good word to maybe to use for that? We are showing Mr. John grace. Maybe something else. What's another word? Mercy. Compassion. Yes. Compassion. We are being compassionate to Mr. John, right? Because we love him and we understand that sometimes things don't go as planned, right? And so today, I want us to talk about what it means to be compassionate. Who do you think teaches compassion the best way? Who do you think might have taught us how to be? Jesus. You're right, Jesus. So as followers of Jesus, we need to work to be compassionate to everyone, right? To everyone we meet, and maybe to those we don't even know. We have to work to love and understand. And so I'm going to tell you something about where we live. How many of you are in school? How many of you love school? That's okay. It's all right. But, yes. You love school. See, a lot of the parents love school. It's because they're older and wiser. They appreciate what school can do for us, right? And so because where we live, every child has to go to school. Whether it's public school, whether it's private school, or whether it's homeschooling, every child here in the United States, when they turn a certain age, have to be in school. Isn't that great? Yeah, even if you don't like school right now, school is important because it helps us to be prepared as grown-ups, right? So we are in the United States, correct? But there are places around us, countries around us, that don't provide education for all of its children. And so, for example, the Dominican Republic, which really isn't that far from the United States, right? Not all kids get an education. Now, how does that make your heart feel? Sad, right? And so that's that compassion. And so then you feel, and then you want to help, right? And so today you're going to hear a story and hear about opportunities where we can be compassionate to some of our friends that are a little farther away from us, our neighbors, right? And so as followers of Christ, we are supposed to love and serve our neighbors. Now, are they our neighbors? Yeah. Everyone our neighbor? Yeah. And so we are called to love everyone. And sometimes that's hard. But when we have a compassionate heart, it's easier to do that. So can you be compassionate to all those around you?
Yes, ma'am.
I know you guys can. I know you can. You are, right? Okay, will you pray with me? We'll do an echo prayer. Loving God, thank you for loving us.
Thank you for loving us.
And thank you for teaching us compassion.
And thank you for teaching us compassion.
And help us to be compassionate
And help us to be compassionate
to everyone.
to everyone.
Amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good morning, church. First of all, I want to get this out of the way. Be prepared if you come Wednesday night for the trivia. I plan on winning. So, yes, you can. So, I plan on. Rebecca, will you have a second place prize just so it's not demoralizing to everybody else? Can you do? Okay, good. Thank you. Second, what we're calling today is Compassion International Sunday at our church. And this is a big deal because really what it is that we've asked, the Go team has asked Compassion International to come and be with us to help us to expand our witness to the ends of the earth. Compassion International is a well-respected Christian humanitarian aid organization that was founded in 1952. In other words, it has over 70 years of helping rescue children from around the world out of extreme poverty. There have been impact studies done on this organization by independent groups, and each time they consistently conclude that Compassion International has a large and statistically significant impact on participants in the program, those who end up becoming sponsored through Compassion International, to help them with their school completion, their probability of later employment, and their overall positive outcomes surrounding these children, including positive self-esteem and expectations for them. In other words, Compassion International works. They're helping us to live into what we've been talking about since really January. It's for us to be focused on our mission, to be focused on what it is that God is calling us to do, to not get distracted by other things. So they're here to help us, specifically in what we've been talking about the last 3 weeks leading up to today, from Acts 1:8, where Jesus says, "You will be my witnesses to Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." Here's the thing. I think we know our Jerusalem, Lebanon, well. I think we are becoming very good at loving and serving our community, at helping those around us. Not that we can't get better, but I think we've got a pretty good handle on what we need to do. And in fact, this past year and into this year, we really started addressing some of the underlying causes of hunger in our community. We're really getting at some of these things. I think where we need help is in how we can be a witness to the ends of the earth. And that's where Compassion International excels. They are able to have an impact, to be a witness all over the world. And they're here to help us today. I hope you've been praying, as I asked you last Sunday, about whether God may want you to sponsor a child. Here's what $38 a month can mean in the life of a child in the Dominican Republic, where these children are from, where we're kind of focusing our efforts. It's nutritious meals and clean water for many children for the first time in their life. It's new clothing and shoes for every child in the program. It's immediate medical care for any child in this program. They get to go to school. Rebecca talked about that. We consider that a given here, but it takes money for tuition. Even public schools, it requires tuition and a uniform, which most children in poverty don't have. Compassion gives them the tuition, gives them uniform, and even provides them tutoring through the local churches in their community so that it get them caught back up if they're late starting school. They receive important life skill training, and they also receive vocational training when they get to be a certain age to help them to find income-generating vocations and careers for them when they graduate the program. They also get connected to local churches in that community that will help teach them about Jesus and love on them. They also get connected to another church, Lebanon First United Methodist Church. And we'll be able to have interactions with our children, and we will take a team down at some point in the near future to meet these children and to impact the community around them and work through the churches that are partnering there with Compassion International. And then when they graduate from the program, and they can be in the program up to 22 years of age, then what they see is a totally transformed life, an empowered person ready to succeed in the world. Church, I'll tell you, Friday night I went down to Nashville. Now, I hate going to Nashville now. It's always a mess. You always get, your blood pressure goes up, your anxiety goes up, just navigating the traffic and the flow and the people all the time. It's just like a can of sardines in downtown Nashville. But I navigated it because I had a tribute concert in memory of one of my friends that was going on. I wanted to support the family there. And so I went down to the concert Friday night, and I parked. And for 4 hours of parking, it cost $40, which is ridiculous. And I remember thinking to myself Friday night, there's a lot better uses of money than to pay for a parking spot for 4 hours. And then it hit me this morning, $40 is $2 more than what it takes for me to sponsor a child for a whole month. Now, I could continue to talk about Compassion International, but we have someone with us today who is proof that Compassion International works. Gerald Lorenzo is a former Compassion child who lives mostly in Fort Lauderdale, but commutes back and forth to the Dominican Republic a lot. He has a business that he's the CEO of that helps persons in the Dominican Republic and other Spanish-speaking nations with immigration issues. Gerald is a testimony that lives can be changed through compassion. He can not only witness to that and the impact of Compassion International in sponsoring a child, but he'll help us to understand more about this country within which we are investing in and being a witness in to the ends of the earth, the Dominican Republic. And so what we're going to see is that, and then we'll have some follow-ups there. His testimony is impressive. If you want to read more about him, we have a short little synopsis of about him in the bulletin, and you can Google him and find it as well. But I'm just going to invite him to come up and share with us. So without further ado, will you help me welcome Gerald Lorenzo?
Wow, what a blessing it is to be here and share my story with all of you. As Pastor say, I'm from the Dominican Republic. And today what I want to do is to share with all of you a little bit about my story. So to grow in poverty, it is hard. To not having a father, it is hard. But it is harder when you don't mean anything to your father. When I was 4 years old, I remember that my father left the house and my mother had to raise my brother and me all by herself. And from that age, I never knew what it was like to have a father. That means that everything started to change in my life because I had to deal with a lot of things in my life, like not having money to get education, to get uniform transportation. And I remember that I faced a lot of things in my life as a result of that. One of the things that I remember is that I had to go to my school from Monday to Friday with my broken shoes. I remember moments when my mom, she say, okay, Gerald, today we got 10 Dominican pesos, and we need to choose between you taking that money to use it for transportation or you taking that money to have breakfast. So the day that I choose to get the money for transportation, that day I did not have breakfast. I remember some things like me knocking the doors of my neighbors and asking them for empty bottles of Coca-Cola to exchange those empty bottles of Coca-Cola for bread and milk at the grocery store just to eat the only meal of the day. I remember things in my life that I had to sell juice and empanadas on the street. I had to wake up early in the morning and sell hot chocolate and cookies just to survive. So unfortunately, I grew up in a lousy neighborhood in Santo Domingo where drugs, illegal weapons, crimes, and poverty were my daily bread. I remember one day that my father, I decided to call him. It was a Monday morning, and when I called my father, he asked me, trying to contact him, after 14 attempts, maybe in number 15, he decided to pick up the phone, and I remember that he asked me to stop by the police station. Why a police station? Because my father, he was a police officer. And I remember that I got to the police station, being a child, and I went there to get some money to buy food. When I got to the police station, my father wasn't there. And I was waiting for him from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m., and he never showed up. I don't know if you can imagine a child in a police station waiting for his father just to get some money to buy food. That was my case. One of my dad co-workers decided to call my father, and I remember that when he passed me the phone, I talked to my father and I say, hey, I'm here since this morning, 7 a.m. I have been here for almost 9 hours. You are not here. I haven't had breakfast. I haven't eaten anything. And his answer was, just go to your home. I'm going to call your mom. I don't care about you. So that day for me was frustrated. Why? Because the man that was supposed to support me was just letting me know that I doesn't mean anything to him. I remember that day I went back to my home crying, and I talked to the Lord. I fell into my knees in my house, and I talked to the Lord, and I say, Lord, if you get me out of this situation, I promise you that I'm going to serve you for the rest of my life. So the reason why I am here today, it is because God got me out of that situation that I was living. In the middle of that situation, my mom, she was desperate. She didn't know what to do. And she was crying. She was trying to find a solution. And I remember that there was a Christian church close to our community. They got a compassion program. And let me tell you something. My mom went there. She talked to those people, and they say, okay, let's go to see Gerald's house. Let's go to see how Gerald is living. When they went to my house, they found that I was sleeping on the floor and I didn't have a bed to sleep on. And they decided just to put me on a list and took me some pictures and put it in a package like this one. And they sent my package to London, United Kingdom. Here is what happened with me. A man in a church in London, United Kingdom, took my package and decided to sponsor me. And from that moment, that was the perfect time in our life because we found a place that provide food, provide uniform, provide transportation, but the most important thing, we found a place that provide the gospel of Jesus Christ, not only for me, but also for my family. My first bed was gifted by Compassion when I was 11 years old, and that was the first time that I was able to sleep on a bed. If you can see that kind of bed, it was because when they went into my house, they saw that I got a brother, and they say, okay, we can buy a bed like this one. Gerald can sleep at the bottom, and his brother at the top, and his brother can sleep at the bottom of the bed. And I remember that moment because I was so excited because of that. Today I can tell you that my mother, my brother, and I accepted Jesus Christ through Compassion International. My mom, she is a co-pastor in a church in the Dominican Republic today. My brother, he plays the piano at the same church, and also he is working as an external host for Compassion in the Dominican Republic. So we are a great example that a whole family can be changing just sponsoring one child. Many people ask me about the relationship with my sponsor. And to be honest with all of you, I never met my sponsor in person. But Compassion has something that is called letters. And through the letters, I create a bond of a father and son that I never knew before with my sponsor. And when my father never called me to say happy birthday or something special, I was every year receiving letters from my sponsor, just letting me know, hey Gerald, we are here in London, and I just want to let you know that you are so special for us. For Christmas, I was receiving letters from my sponsor, just letting me know, hey, we are thinking in you, you are special for us. So today I can tell you that my life is not a roller coaster anymore. I am married to a beautiful woman from the Dominican Republic. Her name is Vanessa, and I got two beautiful baby girls, Valerie and Victoria. Valerie, she is almost 4 years now in April, and Victoria, she is 1 year old. One of the things that I love to share about my story is that thanks that one day a man from a church decided to sponsor me, I'm not going to repeat the same story as my father. One of the goals that I have in my life is to be that husband for my wife that my mom never had before, but also to be that father for my daughters that I never had before. So when Jesus Christ comes into your life, today I can say that Jesus Christ changed everything. Today I got a bachelor's degree in business management thanks to Compassion. I got a certification in Christian leadership. As pastors say, I'm working and serving to a lot of people with immigration issues in the Dominican Republic and here in the United States. And a good question that many people ask me is, Gerald, now that you are a Christian guy, now that you are serving to the Lord, how is your relationship with your father? So I can tell you today that, unfortunately, my father, he passed away a few years ago. But before that, God allowed me to go to my father's house, talk to him about the gospel of Jesus Christ, and forgive him. Why? Because I always say, when Jesus Christ comes into your life, it is not just to give you food, transportation, or uniform. Jesus Christ comes into your life to change everything. And one of the things that God allowed me was to go to my father's house and forgive him. A few months ago, somebody asked me about, hey Gerald, can you please tell us about what Compassion did for you? And as soon as he asked me that question, I was thinking like, well, wait a minute, let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you what Jesus Christ, through Compassion International, is still doing in my life. And the reason why is because I remember that my mom, a few years ago, she was diagnosed. When I'm talking to you about a few years ago, it's like 2 years ago. My mom, she was diagnosed with something called Chiari malformation, type 2. This is like a little tumor in the spinal cord. I remember that my mom called me from the Dominican Republic, and she said, hey, Gerald, here there is a doctor that wants to talk to you because he said that he found something in my spinal cord. And I remember when he talked to me, he said, okay, your mom have like a little tumor in the spinal cord, and we need to perform a surgery for her as soon as possible because if we don't do that, she's going to start losing her body nerves. And he said this is like a brain surgery that we need to do for her. But he said something. He said, I can give you the diagnosis, but I cannot perform the surgery for her because I don't have this specialty. So I remember that I talked to my mom and I say, okay, let's go to the United States and let's try to find a doctor. When she came here to the United States, we found a doctor, and that doctor, he said, okay, we need to perform a surgery for your mom as soon as possible, and we need to do that because if not, she's going to start losing her body nerves and everything. And I was like, okay, doctor, what we have to do? And he said, we got a problem. And I was like, a problem? What is the problem? And he said, we don't have, or your mom doesn't have medical insurance here in the United States. And I was like, well, that's not a problem. How much it is? You know, like I always say, like acting as that man of the super faith. And he say, well, if you have $55,000 in 2 weeks, we can prepare your mom and we can perform the surgery for your mom. And when he mentioned that kind of money, I was like, okay, doctor, now we got a big problem. But here is the thing. I remember that I looked at my mom and I talked to her. And I say, hey, mom, you know what? The Lord is going to provide for us. If there is something that I remember from you, is that every day at night you are with a group of women praying. If there is something that I remember from you, is that every Saturday in the morning, in your room, you are praying to the Lord. I'm pretty sure that the Lord is going to provide to us. So my mom, she went back to the Dominican Republic, and I don't know how she found an appointment with one doctor that used to perform surgeries for the government guys in the Dominican Republic. When she went back to that office, she was mentioning my name, and I remember that there was a girl in that office, and she said, did you mention Gerald Lorenzo? And my mom said, yes. And she said, was Gerald Lorenzo in Compassion International? And my mom said, yes. And she said, is Gerald Lorenzo in the United States? And she said, yes. And this lady, she said, wow, if you are Gerald's mom, you are my mom. She wasn't understanding. My mom wasn't understanding what was happening. But I remember that she called me back, and when he passed me the phone, that lady, she said, hey, Gerald, how are you? It's Nujenly Vargas. And I was like, hey, Nujenly, how are you? And she said, did you remember me? And I was like, of course, I know who you are. And she said, did you remember when we were together in the Compassion program that you were studying business management and I was studying medicine? And I was like, yes, I remember that time. And she said, well, today I'm just calling you to letting you know that your mom is in good hands. Today I am a neurosurgeon, and I'm going to perform the surgery for your mom. I was like, wow, Lord, thank you. I remember that moment when everything started to happen with my mom, when that doctor was in the surgery room performing that surgery for my mom, and I was just like, saying to the Lord, thank you. Because I don't know if you can understand that, but a former sponsor child was the person that performed the surgery for my mom. And you know how much do we pay for that surgery? We pay nothing, $0. Why? Because the Lord used a former sponsor child to save my mom's life. So today I can tell you that when you decide to sponsor a child, you are not only sponsoring a child, you are changing a life as my life. You are changing a family as my mother, my brother, and I. And you are changing an entire generation as my wife, my baby girls, all the people that I have the opportunity to work with. And one conclusion that I have about compassion is that Jesus and the church are more powerful than poverty. Jesus and the church are more powerful than poverty. Today we got more than 75 kids on the table. And let me tell you something. All of them are a decision away, just a decision away, to be the next neurosurgeon of their country, the next pastor, missionary, evangelist. Who knows? So thank you so much for having me here and for allowing me to share my story with all of you. Thank you, Pastor.
I asked my son after the early service, I said, what did you think about worship this morning? And he said, well, I got to admit, Dad, when you were up there preaching, I was kind of tuning you out a little bit, which is, I'm sure he's the only one that ever does that, but he was doing that. And he said, but then when you introduced Gerald and he got up and started speaking, I looked up, he said it sounded just like Big Papi. Now, if you're a baseball person, you know that Big Papi is David Ortiz, Hall of Fame Major League Baseball player from the Dominican Republic. You know, what I thought it was cool because it led to a conversation on, well, you know that for David Ortiz and for Gerald, they have their accent from the Dominican, but they don't speak English as their first language. They've had to learn that, and so they have their Dominican accent as they're trying to speak English, and it was an interesting conversation. But Gerald really had an impact on my son, and for that I'm thankful, and just that realization of just how big our world is and the opportunities we have to serve. I hope you picked up in his Big Papi accent what he said, that not only did Compassion International have a huge impact on his life and his brother's life, but how a fellow Compassion child became a neurosurgeon and is still practicing in the Dominican and helping to save lives through her training, including his mom's. And that's a powerful, powerful witness of the impact that all of us can have when we make that decision and when others can offer us compassion, as Rebecca talked about as well. Our Go team has set a goal today that we would rescue 75 children from extreme poverty in the Dominican Republic. We have 125 profiles here today. Our goal is 75, but we're not going to stop there if we go past it, and we're going to learn more about that in just a minute. But we do have a video that I want to share with you, and it's about when a child learns that she has been sponsored by Compassion International, because of the reputation that Compassion has around the world. Children know the impact that it can have on their life and know that it changes the trajectory of their life. And so when she finds out, it's a huge moment. There's subtitles. This is from Indonesia, is where this Compassion child is from. There's subtitles because they're speaking in their original language. But don't get so lost with the subtitles that you don't look at her face when she finds out that she has been sponsored. So let's watch the video.
Nama saya Helena Estibora, umur saya 8 tahun. Saya tinggal di 5 saudara dan 2 orang tua.
Saya tidak bisa menentukan juga, tapi sebagai orang tua kami bersalah. Kami juga tidak mampu untuk melayani yang pasti bersalah kepada Tuhan.
Waktu itu, tetapi saya lebih memilih ketika pendekatan oleh gereja untuk melayani anak-anak. Dan di situ saya lihat kemuliaan Tuhan, bahwa lebih luar biasa kita melayani anak-anak daripada kita memikirkan hal-hal duniawi.
Susahkan kita ini, walaupun bikin rumah begini itu beban banyak karena arisan ya kita, tapi belum tutup sama sekali arisan ini. Saya stres, Asti bilang, jangan stres mama. Saya lega pikiran, saya bang cium sama anak, Asti bilang sama saya. Saya cium sama dia, saya bang, saya tidak stres sekarang, saya aman-aman sekarang.
Saya di PPA paling suka buku cerita karena rajin membaca.
Berikan kepada mereka. Terlebih lagi Helena itu anaknya, kalau saya lihat selama saya mengajar, anaknya pintar dan periang, ceria, dan sering tidak bolos masuk PPA.
Pertama, saya merasa bangga sekali Pak, karena proses perubahan kita melihat dari penampilan mereka. Karena apa yang kami lakukan bukan hanya dengan kata-kata, tapi perbuatan nyata. Baik, terima kasih. Fungsi papan data anak untuk mengetahui anak-anak yang terdaftar di PPA, berapa seluruhnya, berapa yang dapat sponsor, dan berapa yang belum punya sponsor.
Sponsor, saya sakit hati karena tidak dapat sponsor.
Tiap kali dia kasih tahu sama saya bagaimana saya mau anak-anak yang lain sudah ada sponsor, saya belum dapat. Dan saya mama berdoa juga, tapi saya tidak pernah dapat. Tunggu anak, tidak mungkin. Nanti Tuhan yang atur. Saya bilang gitu sama dia.
3-4 bulan ke depan bahwa anak-anak ini akan memiliki sponsor melalui tangan-tangan Tuhan untuk menjamah hati para yang bisa peduli kepada anak. Tuhan akan memberikan yang terbaik buat keluarga ini. Ada sukacita Asti, keluarganya Asti mendapat sponsor, dan ini surat dari sponsor yang buat Asti. Ibu juga tidak bayangkan. Itu yang sponsor.
Boleh Asti.
Terima kasih banyak bahwa anak saya baik. Saya kasih masuk PPA. Saya hari ini saya bangga sekali. Tapi Tuhan yang balas. Saya tidak mampu balas, tapi Tuhan yang balas. Tidak pernah saya mimpi bahwa sponsornya Ati hari ini ada. Tapi saya bangga sekali sehingga saya jatuh air mata. Terima kasih banyak, berlimpah-limpah.
Mereka, anak-anak itu merasa dekat dengan sponsornya, dan jadi ketika mereka menceritakan isi surat seperti itu, anak-anak merasa luar biasa bahwa itu tidak bisa dibayangin seperti itu.
Asti, namaku dan aku senang menjadi sponsormu.
Mungkin pikirnya ya sekedar komunikasi saja, tetapi lebih daripada itu, kedekatannya lebih dekat sekali. Dan saya berterima kasih kepada Tuhan yang bisa memberikan sponsor kepada anak sebagai anak dan bapak, Dan saya berterima kasih kepada Compassion sebagai jembatan yang dapat menghubungkan yang ada di seberang bisa menjadi satu. Itu kebanggaan saya dan saya merasa senang sekali.
Last night, as a family, after the first service, Tyler went and found a child that, as a family, we are sponsoring and trying to rescue out of extreme poverty. I want us to be a participant in this, to expand our witness to the world, but I also want my son to understand and learn at a young age and take with him that we don't exist for our own well-being. We exist to love and serve others. That's what we're about. That's what we try to do. And so he seemed excited as he was talking about, looking through and basically just said, every one of those children deserves to be rescued from poverty. And I didn't want to just pick, so I just grabbed one. But that's exciting for us as a family, and I hope you'll join us and expand our witness around the world. It'll be connected to a church at the Dominican Republic. It'll also be connected to Lebanon First United Methodist Church. And I hope that my family, there'll be opportunities for us to go down and meet these children and work in these communities and partner with these churches on the ground. And I hope that as a family we can do that together sometime. I want to kind of finish our time today, and we're not going to have a closing song, so after Scott is finished, then I'll come up and offer a benediction, and then we'll leave today. But I want to introduce Scott Limerick. Over the last year, Scott and I have gotten to become friends. He has one major flaw, and it almost cost him coming in, almost for somebody else to come in. He's a Boston Red Sox fan. And we already have one. That's, Steve Bautel is a Red Sox fan, and so that's one too many, but now we've got two in the church today. But he's a good guy. He's gotten to know our Go team. They're excited about it too. But Scott is the Southeast Regional Manager for Compassion International. He's going to share kind of what it means to sponsor a child. So.
Wow, sorry. I don't have time to explain what it means to sponsor a child because I would be here all day. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone is more passionate about it than I am, because I used to be a skeptic of it. And then I met my compassion child who I didn't even think existed, and everything changed. And so since then, and I got to see it. When I went to meet my compassion child, I was a pastor at a church, and it helps to be a skeptic sometimes, and then you look at things a different way, and I couldn't find anything wrong with it. Compassion's not perfect. I want you to hear that. But compassion works. And in a nutshell, here's why compassion works. You heard Gerald talking about the monster of poverty. I want you to understand poverty is more than just physical. It's a stronghold. There's an emotional side to poverty. There's an educational side to poverty. As you mentioned earlier, these kids in the DR don't get to go to school. If they don't have money, they don't go to school. They can't afford the tuition. If they do somehow scrape the money for tuition, they can't afford the uniform. If they can somehow do that, then they end up going in broken shoes, just as Gerald said, and they tend to come from homes that are illiterate, and so they're just way behind the other kids. So compassion attacks that. But we actually think that poverty starts spiritually. So you don't get to answer, Pastor Ryan, but somebody tell me, what county are we living in? Is it Wilson County? Wilson County? So those of you that are natives to this county can probably tell me where the pockets of poverty are in this county, and they've been there for generations, right? And the reason is we just throw money at it, or we throw backpacks at it, or we do a feeding ministry and we hope that it'll help, and it does help temporarily. But what compassion has learned is that you first have to get poverty out of the child before you can get the child out of poverty. It's holistic child development. And that's what I want you to know. So your $38 isn't just buy them a pair of Air Jordans, although I'll take a pair of those if you don't, yeah. Size 12, please. But it's not that. It's a pair of it's giving them just enough to get them ready to go to the next step. And so what compassion has taught me is that the opposite of poverty isn't wealth. It's enough. And am I the only one in this room who has been blessed with more than enough? I don't think so. So why does God do that? He does that so we can help others have what they need. It's okay to have some nice things, don't get me wrong, but it's not the extra he gives us is not just for us and our kids who will blow it when we go to heaven, right? I was a financial planner for a long time. I used to hear that. So I know you're ready. I know you're ready. Those in the choir, I know you're ready. I was a worship pastor, loved my praise choir, yeah. So I want you to know you're probably the most holy in this room. And so we expect you to be the first. No. Our goal was 75 kids. We've changed our goal. I got permission from Rebecca and the Go team. Our goal today now is to run out of packets because first worship was just incredible in their response. And this is what a packet looks like. Pretty simple. It's one piece in 3 sections. The top section on the front will show you a picture of your child and give you their date of birth and the name that they go by. When you get your welcome packet, you'll see what their real name is, but this is the name they go by. On the back of the top, we'll give you a little refresher on the $38 and what it covers. And listen, I'm not even kidding. It's like loaves and fishes, what the 38 covers. I don't know how God does it with $38, but he does. And the middle section tells you a little bit more about your child and their family on the front, and on the back of it, it will tell you more about their community. All we need, you keep that. You keep the top 2 pieces. All we need you to do is tear off the bottom piece, fill out the front and the back of that, and bring it to one of the tables. The tables are 2 here in the front, be incredible. I loved watching people come forward after first service like an act of worship. And then we've got tables in the narthex too. And I think all the packets are out. All the packets that we have left are out, okay? Does that make sense? If you're watching online, you're a part of our church family too, and we want you to be a part of this movement. And you just text the word Lebanon, not Lebanon, right? I'm born in Tennessee, and I still want to pronounce it that way, but it's Lebanon. But text the word Lebanon to 83393, and you will receive a link to a child from one of the partner churches of First United Methodist Lebanon in the Dominican Republic. Does that make sense? So Lebanon to 83393. Listen, those of you that are, like I'm an old dude, right? The younger people, tell me what this thing is here in the corner. It's a QR code. So you can help some of our older people in case they want to use that, right? Like me. But the QR code, a lot of people wanted to use that in first service. You can do that. All you do is you just hit that, and then you fill out the front of the card, and then on the back of it, you'll just put, I used the QR code. But we want you to finish that process while you're here before you leave. Does that make sense? We still need that bottom piece. So don't take the packet with you till we have the bottom section. Some of you, many of you, I think God is going to move, just like he did in first service, to do more than one child. My family and I are sponsoring a lot of kids, and we're not on commission. We do it because we know it works. But if you do that, we're just going to ask you to fill out one card and then tear off the bottom pieces to the other ones, and we'll staple them together, right? Grandparents in the room. I'm a grandparent. Any great-grandparents in the room? Any great-grandparents? Any of those? Wow, super blessed. So I want you guys to know, just because I'm 62, just because we're older doesn't mean we can't participate, right? It's very common for grandparents to sponsor kids for their grandchildren, like they pay for it, and the grandchildren actually are the sponsors. We hear stories often where the sponsor of a child is younger than the actual compassion child because parents and grandparents are leaving this legacy of generosity. So I hope you got all that. I know it's all 100% tax deductible. Had someone ask me in first service, how much out of every dollar goes to the kid? Great question. We're board mandated to never go below 80 cents out of every dollar. This year it's around 84 cents out of every dollar. And since so much of that dollar goes to the child, the IRS deems that this is a 100% tax deductible. So I think I've handled all the business stuff, but I'll be here if you have any questions, right? So are you ready? I pray, right? So here's the thing. When I was a pastor, I used to have people tell me all the time, Pastor, I just want to be a part of something bigger than me. I want to be part of something that's like, that can change the world. And I would give them options, and they would say, well, not today. One of these days is code for when. Never, somebody said. You're right. So what I want you to do is I want you to step off the Christian treadmill that's getting kind of boring and monotonous, and realizing that if your walk with God has gotten boring, it's not God. It's me and you. We're addicted to comfort and convenience, especially in America. And it scares me. It scares me. And if you will rescue a child and maybe go on one of our short-term mission trips with First United Methodist Lebanon and meet your child and get your hands dirty and be a little uncomfortable for a little while, God will change your life. It's why he says go. He says go. And this is a really easy way to go. So I'm going to ask you if you would to stand. Let's stand together. And I want to thank you so much for giving your attention to this. And I pray that, I wish there was a way that I could get everybody to care. But I'm praying that after Pastor Ryan prays for us and he says amen, that we won't just do church today, we'll be the church. God bless you. Thanks for letting us share today.
As you leave here, know that God is calling each of us to go and be his witnesses to Jerusalem, Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And he's calling us to do it with, as Rebecca said, compassion. Go in peace.